Hello there and welcome to another episode of the Rest is Policing podcast. My name's Martin Buhagiar. I'm joined by Lee Broadbent. Hi Lee, how are you?
I'm good, thanks Martin. I hope you're well.
Very well, thank you. Very good. We just thought we'd jump on, didn't we, as well, and we haven't done a podcast for a week or so we thought we'd do another podcast, but to maybe correct some recent headlines that have hit the social media channels. And I think we'll start as well by saying we're really grateful for the added exposure and brand awareness, because I've seen our LinkedIn profiles doing really well, our X profiles doing really well, but we've seen another growth spurt since we had a bit of exposure. So thank you very much to those media outlets for doing that. But we wanted to maybe correct a couple of myths, because they seem to be focused very much on industrial rights and strike. We're not sure where they got the idea from. Who knows? But we'll just go through a couple of the headlines. Police group goes for strike action. Strike rights bid by police body. Police body could open the door to strike action. And that was just a few of the headlines. And it started off with a Sun article, didn't it? Coincidentally, on the same day, we received a response from the Home Office and the Police Federation to our judicial review. So we'll tackle all of that quickly. But first of all, one of the things we picked up on, which is great, the journalists who've written those articles said they watched our podcast, the Rest is Policing podcast, which is fantastic. So welcome to them. I'm a former journalist myself, so always happy to have these guys on board. And if you have any questions, please ask rather than just guessing, because that will get more accurate articles. But I think we've been really clear on this podcast, haven't we, in turn, and in all of our MPA literature, that we are not about strike action. We're about something much bigger and broader than that. But I'll pass over to you, Lee, to maybe address that.
Yeah, I can kind of see where the article came from, because it came from a podcast where we were discussing the choices we were making at the time. And the choices that we were looking at were, do we go for a full-blown argument very, very early on, which would encapsulate a right to strike and a freedom of choice argument under Article 11? Or do we go for the narrow argument of the right of choice, essentially, freedom of association? And as I said, I'd taken legal advice on both avenues. And whilst there was merit in having one big argument that might have attracted lots of police officer attention, lots of police officer funds, it was felt that would be a distraction from the main purpose of what we're trying to do, which is create choice. Essentially break the Federation's monopoly and allow for plural representation. And we have a bit of a mandate for that. People are supportive of that. They've donated to it. They're not generally supportive, or we haven't got a mandate, so to say, for any right to strike. And it was really interesting to see how the articles were being framed, because the only organisation that has a mandate for a right to pursue industrial action is the Police Federation. It has conducted 3 membership polls in the last 15 years, all of which have returned positively overwhelming results for them to pursue such a mandate, and yet they've sat on it and idled that away. So it was really interesting how the new fledgling plural choice argument was being pitched out over. Look at these strike agitators. It was quite amusing.
It was, and I think we've put a statement out, haven't we, which people can read on our website and on LinkedIn. We've sent that to journalists. I have to say, LBC corrected their article straight away, so thank you to them, and put the statement in. I think Guido Fawkes then did an article the next day, based on the Sun article, which is and I as I said, you know media as well as I do, Lee, as well, that these things can grow legs and run, which may well have been the point of whoever decided to try and get that idea across to the Sun initially, which is all fine, all's fair in love and war. But I think from our point of view, what I found interesting is that the only organisation, as you said, that has a mandate for industrial rights or industrial action is the Police Federation. I think it's important that we talk about that, because we've referred to that in our statement, that in 2024 the Police Federation had a poll. It returned favourably in terms of its members wanting industrial action or the right to strike, if you like. And yet nothing's happened. And we've now got the response from the Home Office and the Police Federation in terms of our judicial review. And that response from the Police Federation, I think, as you said in an article, Lee, the Home Office response wasn't really a surprise, but the Police Federation response was quite eye-opening, wasn't it?
Yeah. And honestly, I wish we could publish the response, but we can't. We're simply bound by the rules of the judicial review. We cannot publish the response, or we can't even publish direct quotes from it. What we can do is summarise it. And in summary, my God, it's quite clear why they've blown the mandate out of the water, because the submission to the judicial review is completely supportive of the status quo. They argue that we shouldn't have any association because it would open up the door, or could open up the door to further strike or strike action, which is absolutely ludicrous in itself. But yeah, and then it sets out a case as to why police officers should not be able to have plural choice and should not be able to take industrial or industrial rights action because of the unique status of policing. Honestly, I mean, I thought I'd read trade during the pension challenges, when we were giving briefings to the Home Secretary in support of the transitional protections and the betrayal of the memberships down there. And I thought that was bad, but my word, when I read this, it was fundamentally betrays any mandate that the membership have given them. It's just shocking.
It is, and obviously I've been there for a few years, as you have, and obviously you're a police officer, and you'll know better than me that that over the years, as you've alluded to earlier in this pod, that they've had several chances, or they've been given a mandate on several occasions, haven't they? So for them to, when I was there, certainly it always felt like it was building towards eventually the Police Federation saying to the Home Office, right, we've got a mandate from our membership for the right to strike, to be able to unionise in terms of taking industrial action. We want to have a discussion about this and move this forward. That's happened so many times now, and yet nothing has ever been put forward. So what was, in your mind, what was the point of the poll in 2021? Is that posturing? Is that the Police Federation saying, yeah?
Yeah, it's simple posturing. It's peacocking, as I would say. Look at us. They've had absolutely no intention, and it's clear. It's absolutely clear from the stated case that they've never had any intention of ever listening to the membership, and it breeds into this legitimacy gap that we say is there. There's only so many times you can go to your membership and say, "Do you want us to do this? Do you want us to do this?" And completely ignore what the membership say, without the membership then going, "Well, hang on a minute, what's the point?" And this is why, there's a declining number of people taking part in the surveys. There's a declining number of people engaging with them on any sort of platform. It's because they simply don't see the point. And I think this is where, the MPA, this is our real strength in some degree, is because we're saying, well, actually, we don't need a right to strike to be effective. If officers had a choice, that is power in itself, because now you're not just a member of an organisation simply because the law says that you have to be. You're now choosing to be a member of an organisation. And in even choosing that, you're then giving strength and legitimacy to anything that organisation puts forward. If we go forward with a pay proposal and we have, let's say, 15, 20,000 members who have chosen to be with us and to back us, that is much more strength than 145,000 members who simply have to be members because that's what the law says. So you're already altering balance, the power balance here. You're taking back up more power than we previously have. And that is a symbol in itself.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you get the feeling from the Federation, like you say, they'll maintain the status quo to protect themselves, to protect their entity. And on the other side of the coin, you've got the Home Office, who would probably welcome that. And that's, I guess, some of the that's what we were seeing back from the Home Office at the moment, that they believe any reform should come from within the Police Federation, even though it looks to a lot of people like that could never happen. And I know when we spoke about, when the reform paper came out, the Home Secretary put them on notice, if you like, that things must change. And since then, they've lost their judicial review to Rich and Rick, and they called the judgment flawed. They've appealed against that judgment to the same judge that they said had given a flawed judgment and lost that, and then they're going to carry on. Should we be concerned that that maybe the Home Office would prefer to just leave things as they are, in terms of police officers watching this and thinking, I want to get behind the MPA, but how far can they go? what would your response be to that? I mean, obviously I know, but asking for those who might be a bit cynical or concerned that we might not achieve our aim.
Yeah, no, right. So let's address 2 points. Yes, the Home Office are happy with the status quo. Of course, they're happy with it. Why would they want another organisation with the power and the backing of a membership given a mandate to challenge things? Why on earth would they want that? So yes, they want to maintain the status quo. And all this thing from the Home Office around prepared to take action, we've seen it before. We've heard it before. Right away back in 2014, in response to some of the allegations and bullying and culture allegations that came out of Normanton Review. Parliament, the Home Affairs Select Committee, issued its probably strongest warning to date and said it would be a dereliction of Parliament to stand by and watch these things continue. Well, they've continued, and it's gone on for another 10, 12 years, and they've done absolutely nothing. And there's a reason for that. And yet, we are fed up, and so we've gone for the judicial review. And the reason we've gone for the judicial review is because, yes, we would like to find some sort of political resolution to it. Who wouldn't? It saves money, it saves time. We think there are perfect vehicles out there, amendments to the legislation, and we can have pluralism in people representation. Seeing the government's inaction previously, you have to have strength in your hand as well, and that's where the judicial review comes in. And if the judicial review is successful, it will provide a declaration to say that the government's current stance is incompatible with Article 11 human rights. Therefore, it must change it. It's not a like or a need to do. It must act to change the system. And we say that change is plural representation.
Brilliant. So what happens now? We've had our response, or the response from the Home Office and the Police Federation. What's the next step for us with the legal team? What do we do? What do we do now? And in terms of time, I remember asking you about timings on podcasts previously. Is it a piece of string? Do we have sort of clear set timelines of what will happen next?
There's no sort of set timelines, but we can envisage that this next phase, this permission phase, we should get something back from the court within a month or two. So what's happened now is we've submitted our complaint. We've highlighted the areas of law where we think we're incompatible, and we're asking the court to make that decision. The government, as the defendants, so the respondents, they have made their grounds of resistance, and PFEW, as an interested party. We don't think they are an interested party, but we're not going to have that fight with them. They submitted their grounds of resistance also, which mirror essentially what the government are saying. So now the court has to decide, looking at the argument, is there prospect that what we're saying is legitimate and could the law all be overturned? And if it is, then they have to give us permission to have the hearing. We're at the permission phase at the minute. If it turns around and says, no, there's no arguable basis in law for this, it can deny us permission to bring the claim. In that case, we then request an oral hearing where our barristers can then articulate our concerns as to why they think it is arguable and is permissible, and we go on from there. So we're looking at 1 to 3 months before we get to then saying, okay, we might have a hearing. What we're doing now is we'll speak to our legal team tomorrow. Me and Gemma are going to sit down with Lead 8 and counsel. There's a limited opportunity to respond to some of the inaccuracies put forward in the FEWs and the Home Office's submissions, and then we go from there. But we're likely to now see a new funding stage because we'll need to raise additional funds in preparation for a full hearing.
Yeah, so to anybody, we said this a few times, but I've not said it on the podcast for a while. So to anybody who wants to support us, please do visit the NPA.uk and donate what you can. There is a crowd justice page on there, so any money greatly received.
And I'm going to say this is going to be a real crucial time now because there's an argument to say, well, why have we just continually been asking for money? And as I've said on previous podcasts, I don't like raising money from people that are already hard pressed if it wasn't going to be used for that purpose. So I like to do it incrementally. We're now at a stage where we're going to need to raise sufficient funds to meet a full hearing. We know it's room drain. This was an opportunity for the government to say, oh, let's have conversations, but they haven't. They've flatly put up a resistance supported by the Police Federation, and now we're going into a full hearing. So we are going to need to do a significant campaign fund. And, this is another time now where police officers will be able to show strength of feeling. Going back to that original thing that I said around choice, if you give your back into the NPA and you join the NPA, then you're giving it a mandate. If you're giving £10, £15, to this campaign to force this choice through now. You're giving it legitimacy. You're giving it a mandate. You're giving it power and strength. And the quicker we can raise those funds, the better.
Brilliant. The fight goes on.
Say that again, sorry.
The fight goes on.
Fight does go on. Yeah, I've definitely got the belly for it now as well. I can't help it. In terms of all these articles and strike action, and in keeping what PFBW have done before, you can't help wonder whether these things have been wanted in the press in order to then generate some sort of vexatious and malicious complaint against me, because I'm named in all of the articles, to suggest that I'm trying to stir up disaffection in policing, and then, I might get a knock on the door, I might get misconduct papers, who knows? It's flatly in keeping with what the Federation have done previously. Every time, including with the pension challenge, all the way through to this, every time we're in a position where we're getting stronger, our arguments are taking traction, and we're pushing this forward, try to do my allegedly misconduct complaint. So if they want to fight, bring it on. I'm more than ready for it. Fire in my belly, so let's have it.
Good. Yeah, and if it is that, dirty tactics, and I think, it just seems odd for me, having been a journalist and a newspaper editor, knowing how these things work, and I know you do as well, Lee. It does seem like somebody's contacted somebody at the Sun and gone, can you run this story for me? Because if anybody watches these podcasts, I would say if any journalist has watched all of our podcasts, to come away with the idea that we're focused on strike action is bizarre. It's clearly been put in their mind. And we know there are people with links to the Sun. It's not, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes. I've worked with detectives. I don't need to be one to kind of trace back where that might have come from. We know who works with who. It just, and as you said, I think for me, that's what frustrates me, is that the fact that they're trying to make it personal again, the way they try and name you in it and make out that you're some like strike agitator trying to push for industrial rights, which isn't the case. And it's a weak argument. It's a weak argument, but also it's worked wonders for us because our social media followers they're already doing very well. Thank you very much. But we've had another successful hit on that. So we'll take the positives as we do, rather than the negatives.
Absolutely. I mean, like you say, the podcast was originally put out in July last year. If it was an issue, why not report on it in July last year? It was so coincidental that we got the message in relation to the article on the same morning that the responses were coming in. It's just, if it wasn't so laughable.
Yeah, and it's all a bit pathetic, really, isn't it? But there you go. We've got used to that.
Yeah. We were always preparing for when the next smear campaign was coming, and at least you know what, great. At least we know where they're trying to pitch it this time. Couldn't be further from the truth. So, but yeah. Let's have it. Great stuff.
I did a piece with Police TV last week, which some people may have seen, and one thing that Bernard Rick said to me was, it does stick with when they go low, we go high, and I think that's absolutely the right call. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, Lee, thank you very much for your time, and we'll record a podcast again soon. To our listeners and viewers, thank you again for all your help and support, and for your feedback and your views and your donations. Please, if you haven't given anything, please do give if you can. As Lee says, we're at a crucial point in our campaign now to break the monopoly. So I'll see you again soon, Lee, and we'll see you again soon on The Rest is Policing.
Great stuff. Thanks, Martin. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.